Apple recently let go of two senior executives, including software chief Scott Forstall, and reports say Forstall had refused to sign a public apology over Apple's new mapping program's problems.
Instead, Apple's chief executive Tim Cook signed the apology letter. This is Apple's biggest shakeup in a decade and the first major test of Tim Cook's leadership since the late Steve Jobs.
Now, earlier we spoke to Mr. Rajeev Peshawaria about leadership renewal, and he's the CEO of Iclif, a leadership and governance center based in Malaysia. He's also the author of Too Many Bosses and Too Few Leaders.
And we ask him about some of the challenges leaders of big companies like Apple face.
Leading a large company can never be easy, and you need a lot of energy to lead. If somebody is in that position just because they want to be CEO and enjoy the perks of that position and the prestige of that position, I'd say God help them. Leadership is about creating a better future. And the moment you say you want to create a better future, the whole world tells you in a million ways why that's a bad idea and why you will not succeed. So you're going to be lonely, you're going to be unpopular, you're going to be misunderstood, and there's no guarantee that you'll succeed. Do you really want to be a leader? So, only those people who really know why they want to be a leader can succeed. So you're absolutely right. It's not easy to lead a large company.
Okay, Rajeev, you wrote this book, Too Many Bosses, Too Few Leaders. What's the difference then between a boss and a leader? Can a leader not be a boss?
Yeah, there are many differences between bosses and the way we differentiate between bosses and leaders, but let me just talk about two of them. At the basic level, a leader is someone who first imagines and then strives hard to create a better future for the people around them. So if you're not in the habit of closing your eyes and imagining a better future and then working hard towards it, you haven't started leading yet. Bosses, on the other hand, cling to the past and somehow cope with the present. They don't necessarily build a better future.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So to be a leader, you're going to be lonely, but you have to be creative at the same time. But, can bosses or leaders in that sense then be nurtured? I mean, bosses, they, like you say, they're just there to execute it, but leaders, they're there to nurture and create a better future. So can they be nurtured? Yeah,
again, depends whether it's bosses or leaders. So I was going to say the second difference is that leaders are very clear about two things. They're very clear about their purpose and about their values. And they lead with that sense of purpose and values because those two things gives them the energy that they're going to need when they're going to be lonely, when they're going to be building that better future. Without that kind of energy, without that kind of intrinsic energy, you will give up. Steve Jobs used to say that you've got to love what you do. Otherwise, you're going to ask yourself the question, you're sane. Is it worth it? Let's give up.
Right.
So unless you love what you do, which is about having clarity of purpose and clarity of values, you're not going to get the energy to lead. And bosses don't have that kind of clarity, and therefore they give up at the first sign of resistance. Now, coming back to whether leaders are born or made, is that I think what your question was, well, can they be nurtured? I think there's two parts to leadership. First is finding that intrinsic sources of energy in order to not give up in the face of resistance, and that comes from clarity of purpose and values. That is not teachable. You have to discover it yourself. The second part, how do I energize my team and how do I energize the entire organization that I lead and focus the energy towards creating that? That part is a lot more learnable and teachable. And we can teach you tools, we can teach you frameworks for that. But the intrinsic, almost that spiritual source of energy, which is I want to do this because I want to create a better future, that is not learnable, and no classroom can teach you that.
Okay, well, last question here. Is the issue of leadership a problem in Asia, do you think?
Yes, I think it is. In Asia, we have this thing called a very high power distance culture, meaning that senior people's authority is not challenged. So whether I'm senior by age in a family business or I'm senior because of a title or because of my stature, junior people in Asian companies realize very quickly that to succeed, the best thing I need to do is to just keep my mouth shut and do what the boss tells me to do.
To say yes.
To say yes. And that is a perfect recipe for killing innovation right there. this needs to change big time, because I believe Asia and Asian companies are underachieving their potential. Asia has very smart people, but it's underachieving its potential. Unless we change this mindset of micromanaging and not challenging authority, we will produce bicycles, and we will be the back office of the world in terms of processing, and all the R&D, and if you will, the cool stuff will still continue to come predominantly from the West. It doesn't have to be that way.
Mr. Rajeev Peshawaria, CEO of Iclif Leadership and Governance Center based in Malaysia.